Tonight, you're invited into a quieter world, one built to wait, to watch, and to remain calm. This is the Silent Sentinels, unseen stories of abandoned Cold War infrastructure. A gentle sleep story for adults, where history is told softly, without urgency, and without noise. As you listen, imagine hidden places across the United States, beneath open fields, beyond quiet towns, and along distant coastlines. Structures designed for moments that never came, now resting peacefully in time. These stories are not about fear or conflict, but about patience, restraint, and the deep calm of things left undisturbed. Let your breathing slow. Let your thoughts drift. There is nothing you need to remember, only rest. If this story helps you fall asleep faster and deeper, please consider subscribing. It helps this channel continue creating calm, long-form sleep stories for peaceful nights. You're also welcome to leave a comment sharing where in the world you're listening from. It's comforting to know these quiet stories travel across many places, just like sleep itself. Now get comfortable. The night is ready, and the sentinels are at peace. The night settles gently, as if it knows you are ready to rest. Imagine a time not so long ago when the world itself seemed to pause between heartbeats. It was an era remembered not for what happened, but for what did not. A time when nations watched the horizon quietly, and ordinary evenings carried an unusual stillness. This was the moment when the world held its breath. In the middle of the 20th century, daily life in the United States moved forward with familiar rhythms. Porch lights flickered on at dusk, radios hummed softly in living rooms, trains crossed wide plains under open skies. Yet beneath this ordinary calm, there existed a shared awareness, an understanding that history was unfolding slowly, cautiously, one measured decision at a time. There were no dramatic scenes for most people, no alarms in the night. Instead, there was preparation done quietly, thoughtfully, and often out of sight. Engineers poured concrete far below the surface. Planners drew careful lines on maps. Builders assembled structures meant not for use, but for readiness. These places were not symbols of fear, they were expressions of patience. Across the American landscape, from rural fields to coastal edges, new forms of architecture appeared, sometimes visible, often hidden. A nondescript building near a highway, a reinforced door tucked into a hillside, a facility that blended into its surroundings, asking for no attention at all. These places were designed to wait. Waiting became a theme of the age. Not anxious waiting, but deliberate stillness. People went to work, raised families, celebrated holidays. Children learned multiplication tables and rode bicycles until the streetlights came on. Life continued, steady and familiar, while somewhere nearby, silent structures stood watch. Inside those spaces, the air was cool and constant. Fluorescent lights cast a soft, even glow. Control panels rested quietly, their switches untouched. Clipboards hung neatly on hooks. Everything was ready, yet nothing was happening. Time moved differently there, measured not in minutes, but in readiness. For the men and women tasked with maintaining these places, nights were often the quietest. They followed routines designed for calm, checking systems, logging readings, walking corridors where footsteps echoed gently against concrete walls. Outside, the world slept. Inside, these sentinels remained awake, not out of fear, but out of duty. The broader world mirrored this restraint. Speeches were careful, actions were deliberate, decisions were weighed slowly, often in silence. It was an era defined not by motion, but by balance. The stillness itself became a form of protection. In American homes, the concept of preparedness was introduced gently. Pamphlets explained emergency procedures in calm, reassuring language. Community drills were orderly and brief. The message was simple: be aware, stay calm, carry on. And people did. As years passed, something remarkable happened. The waiting continued, and the feared moment never arrived. The systems remained unused, the doors stayed open, the switches were never thrown. The world exhaled slowly, 1 year at a time. Nature, patient as ever, began to notice these forgotten places. Dust settled in undisturbed rooms, paint softened with age. Outside, grass grew taller around fences that no longer needed guarding. Birds nested near structures built for vigilance, unaware of their original purpose. What remains today are quiet reminders of an extraordinary restraint. These structures tell a story without words, a story of planning without panic, of strength expressed through stillness. They are monuments not to conflict, but to control. As you listen now, safe and comfortable, let the calm of that era wash over you. Imagine the steady hum of ventilation systems, the soft click of a clock marking time. Picture a long corridor, lights dimmed, stretching peacefully into the distance. The world held its breath then, and in doing so, learned how powerful quiet can be. That same quiet surrounds you now. Nothing is required of you. Nothing needs to happen. You are free to rest. Let the waiting end here. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts drift gently, like history settling into memory. The sentinels are at ease. The night is calm, and sleep comes softly, just as it should. As the night deepens, imagine descending slowly beneath the surface of the land. Not in haste, not in darkness, but in a calm and measured way, as though the earth itself has opened a quiet passage just for you. Below the familiar world of roads and houses lies another layer of history, still, cool, and carefully built. These are the concrete guardians beneath the earth. They were constructed with patience and precision. Thick walls poured layer by layer, reinforced with steel, shaped to endure time itself. The people who designed them understood weight, pressure, and silence. They knew how sound travels through stone, how temperature settles underground, how stillness can be preserved. These places were never meant to be seen by many. They were meant to exist quietly. Down here, the air feels different. It is steady, neither warm nor cold, holding a constant balance that never changes with the seasons. The hum of the outside world fades away, replaced by a deep and comforting quiet. Even footsteps seem softer, absorbed by concrete floors that have waited patiently for decades. Corridors stretch forward in gentle lines, illuminated by lights designed not to glare, but to reassure. Doors are solid and heavy, yet they rest open now, no longer needing to seal anything away. Their hinges are strong, their handles worn smooth by careful hands. Each door once represented readiness, not fear, a promise that if they were ever needed, they would be there. Rooms branch off from these hallways, each with a clear purpose. Some held communication equipment, now resting silently in neat rows. Others were designed for rest, simple spaces with bunks, tables, and chairs bolted to the floor. Nothing ornate, nothing unnecessary. everything chosen for calm endurance. There is a sense of order here that feels soothing. Labels remain fixed above switches. Instructions are still posted on walls in clean, straightforward language. Even now, long after their original role has faded, these spaces feel composed, as if they are still waiting for a task that will never come. Above ground, the world moved quickly. Decades passed, styles changed, technology advanced. But beneath the surface, time slowed to a near standstill. Dust settled gently, paint aged gracefully, the quiet grew deeper, not emptier, but fuller, filled with the memory of purpose. Those who once walked these halls did so with steady routines. They checked gauges, they logged readings, they followed procedures that repeated day after day, night after night. There was comfort in repetition, comfort in knowing exactly what to do and when to do it. Outside, uncertainty existed. Inside, there was structure. These underground spaces were never built in anger. They were built in restraint. Their strength lay not in use, but in readiness. And readiness, when paired with patience, becomes a form of peace. As years turned into decades, these places became quieter still. Nature above continued its cycles, rain soaking soil, roots pushing deeper, snow melting into streams, but the concrete guardians held firm. They did not resist the earth, they worked with it, sharing the load, distributing pressure evenly, resting exactly where they were placed. Today, entering such a space feels like stepping into a held breath, the kind that is calm, not tense, the kind that exists between moments. Sound behaves differently here. A soft echo follows even the smallest movement, then fades quickly, returning the space to silence. You might imagine running your hand along the wall. The surface is cool and smooth, shaped by human intention and softened by time. This wall has listened to countless quiet hours. It has felt no urgency. It has asked for nothing. Somewhere above, the stars continue their slow paths across the sky. Down here, there is no rush to follow them. Time is marked only by gentle awareness, the sense that everything is exactly where it should be. These structures were guardians not because they acted, but because they stood ready without demanding attention. Their presence allowed life above to continue normally, to sleep, to dream, to grow. In their stillness, they offered reassurance. As you rest now, let yourself share in that stillness. Imagine being wrapped in the earth's quiet strength, supported on all sides, sheltered without confinement, safe without effort. There is nothing you need to prepare for, nothing you need to watch for. The guardians have done their work simply by existing. Your breathing slows, steady and easy, matching the calm rhythm of these underground halls. Thoughts soften, muscles relax. The weight of the day settles gently, like dust on a long unused floor. The concrete remains, the earth rests, and you, like these silent spaces, are free to let go, held securely in quiet, ready for sleep. As the night continues to unfold, picture a wide and open landscape beneath a calm sky. The kind of place where the horizon stretches far, uninterrupted, and the air carries sound gently across long distances. In these quiet regions, far from crowded cities, stood structures built for listening, not for voices, not for footsteps, but for signals that never came. These were the listening stations that heard only the wind. They were placed carefully, often on elevated ground or along distant coastlines where interference was minimal and silence could be trusted. From the outside, they appeared simple: towers, domes, modest buildings shaped by function rather than beauty. They blended into their surroundings, asking little attention from passers-by, content to remain unnoticed. Inside, however, everything had a purpose. Rooms were arranged with precision, equipment sat neatly aligned, cables organized with care. Dials, meters, and screens were designed to detect the faintest change in the invisible air around them. These stations listened not loudly, but patiently. The people who worked there understood quiet in a way few others did. They learned the subtle differences between meaningful sound and harmless noise, the soft whistle of wind passing over metal, the distant hum of weather moving across land, the gentle static that filled the airwaves like a constant breath. Listening became less about anticipation and more about awareness. Night shifts were common, and they were the calmest of all. Outside, the land rested. Inside, lights glowed softly, never harsh, never bright. Operators sat comfortably, monitoring instruments that rarely changed. The hours passed slowly, marked by routine checks and handwritten notes. There was no urgency, only presence. These stations were built during a time when listening was considered a form of protection, yet the protection they offered was subtle. By remaining alert, they allowed the world beyond their walls to remain at ease. Families slept soundly, cities glowed quietly, roads emptied as night deepened, all while these structures stood watch, hearing nothing more than the steady movement of air. Wind became a familiar companion. It brushed against antennas, moved across rooftops, whispered through open spaces. It was the most consistent visitor, arriving every night without fail. Over time, it became comforting, a reminder that the world was still moving, still breathing. As years passed, technology advanced elsewhere, and the need for such stations faded gently. There were no dramatic closures, no sudden endings. The listening simply slowed, then stopped. Equipment was powered down, logs were completed one final time, doors were closed carefully, as though the buildings themselves deserved a quiet farewell. Nature stepped in seamlessly. Dust settled where hands once worked. Paint softened under years of sun and shade. Outside, grasses grew tall around foundations. Birds perched on railings and towers, unaware that these structures once listened for something more than the breeze. Standing near one of these places today, you might hear exactly what they hear now: the wind. It moves freely, uninterrupted, passing through open land and over empty rooftops. It carries no message, no warning, just motion, gentle and unhurried. There is something deeply calming about that realization. All the careful listening, all the patient waiting resulted in silence, not the unsettling kind, but the peaceful kind, the kind that means nothing needs attention, nothing requires response. Inside the stations, the air feels still. Rooms remain intact, preserved by their isolation. Chairs sit where they were last placed. Clocks stopped long ago, their hands frozen in a moment that no longer matters. Time feels softer here, less demanding. The listening stations did their work without ever needing to react. Their success was measured in quiet nights and uneventful days. They heard only the wind, and that was enough. As you rest now, let your thoughts follow that wind. Imagine it moving slowly across open fields, over hills, through trees. There is no destination it must reach, no urgency guiding its path. It simply moves, as it always has. Your breathing can follow that same rhythm, steady, natural, unforced. Each breath comes and goes like the breeze against a silent tower. Nothing needs to be held on to, nothing needs to be understood. The world outside your room continues quietly, just as it did then. Listening stations once stood awake so others could sleep. Now they sleep too, resting in the same calm they helped preserve. Let the wind pass through your thoughts, carrying away the noise of the day. Let the silence settle comfortably around you. The listening is over, the night is gentle, and you are free to drift into rest, accompanied only by the soft, reassuring sound of nothing at all. As the night deepens and the world grows quieter, imagine a place that feels familiar, yet strangely still. Streets stretch forward in clean, deliberate lines. Buildings stand ready, lights installed, doors unlocked, yet no voices echo between the walls. These are cities designed to be empty, places built not for daily life, but for the possibility of one. During the mid-20th century, planners and engineers across the United States imagined communities that might one day be needed, even if they were never meant to be lived in fully. These places were drawn carefully on maps, their layouts balanced and logical. Roads were wide enough for easy movement. Utilities were positioned with care. Everything was ready, yet nothing was used. Unlike bustling cities that grow organically over time, these places emerged all at once. Buildings rose quickly, efficiently, without the gradual layering of stories and memories. There were no worn staircases, no faded signs from decades of use. Everything was new, untouched, and waiting. Walking through such a city feels like stepping into a paused moment. Sidewalks are clean, uncracked. Windows reflect the sky without interruption. Even the air seems to move differently here, as though it knows it has space to breathe. Sound travels farther, unbroken by conversation or traffic. These cities were not mistakes or abandoned dreams. As the night deepens and the world grows quieter, imagine a place that feels familiar, yet strangely still. Streets stretch forward in clean, deliberate lines. Buildings stand ready, lights installed, doors unlocked, yet no voices echo between the walls. These are cities designed to be empty, places built not for daily life, but for the possibility of one. During the mid-20th century, planners and engineers across the United States imagined communities that might one day be needed, even if they were never meant to be lived in fully. These places were drawn carefully on maps, their layouts balanced and logical. Roads were wide enough for easy movement. Utilities were positioned with care. Everything was ready, yet nothing was used. Unlike bustling cities that grow organically over time, these places emerged all at once. Buildings rose quickly, efficiently, without the gradual layering of stories and memories. There were no worn staircases, no faded signs from decades of use. Everything was new, untouched, and waiting. Walking through such a city feels like stepping into a paused moment. Sidewalks are clean, uncracked. Windows reflect the sky without interruption. Even the air seems to move differently here, as though it knows it has space to breathe. Sound travels farther, unbroken by conversation or traffic. These cities were not mistakes or abandoned dreams. They were expressions of careful planning. Their emptiness was intentional, a form of readiness. If needed, they could fill quickly. If not, they could remain as they were, quiet, orderly, complete in their stillness. Inside the buildings, rooms are simple and practical. Offices with desks arranged neatly, residential spaces with plain finishes, chosen for durability rather than decoration. Hallways stretch calmly from one end to the other, lights humming softly overhead. Everything suggests use, yet invites rest. There is no clutter here, no signs of hurried living, just space. Space to move, to think, to pause. The absence of people does not feel lonely, it feels peaceful, like a deep breath held gently, not tightly. Outside, nature responds in subtle ways. Grass grows evenly along empty medians. Leaves collect undisturbed on sidewalks. Rain falls and evaporates without footprints to interrupt it. Over time, the environment adapts, blending the built and the natural into a quiet balance. These cities never needed to be activated. The moment they were designed for simply never arrived. And so they remained as they were, prepared, calm, and untouched by urgency. In a world often shaped by reaction, they stand as symbols of restraint. Visiting one today, you might feel a strange sense of comfort. There is nothing demanded of you here. No schedules, no crowds, no noise. Just structure and silence coexisting easily. Lights may still function, switches clicking softly when tested. Water pipes remain intact, ready to flow. Roads hold their shape, waiting for wheels that never come. Everything exists in a state of quiet capability. As time passes, these places take on a new role, not as functional cities, but as reminders. They remind us that not every preparation needs to be fulfilled, that sometimes the act of planning is enough. For those who designed them, these cities represented care taken in advance so that uncertainty could be met with calm. Their emptiness today is not a failure, but a quiet success. As you settle into rest, imagine walking slowly down one of these empty streets. Your footsteps are unhurried. The air is cool and clean. Streetlights glow softly, illuminating the path without glare. There is no destination you must reach. Windows reflect the night sky, stars scattered gently above. The buildings stand steady, content in their purpose. They do not rush you, they do not ask anything of you. Your thoughts begin to slow, matching the stillness around you. The day fades gently behind you, like a city settling into sleep long before anyone arrives. These cities were designed to be empty, and in that emptiness, they offer something rare, a place where nothing needs to happen. Let yourself rest there for a while. Let the quiet surround you. The streets are safe, the night is calm, and sleep comes easily, carried on the peaceful promise of space left intentionally open. As the night grows quieter and your surroundings soften, imagine standing before a door unlike any other. It is heavy, solid, and carefully engineered. Its surface is cool to the touch, its hinges built to carry immense weight with effortless balance. This is a steel door that was designed to close once and never needed to. Across the United States, during a time of careful preparation, such doors were installed in places meant to protect through stillness rather than action. They guarded underground corridors, reinforced rooms, and quiet shelters built deep into the landscape. Each door represented readiness, not alarm, strength without urgency. These doors were not hurried into place. They were measured precisely, aligned perfectly within thick concrete walls. Engineers tested their seals, adjusted their balance, ensured that when closed, they would rest as securely as the walls themselves. And then they were left open. Leaving them open was intentional. Open doors allow air to move freely, light to travel gently, and people to pass without effort. Open doors signal calm. They say there is no immediate need to shut the world out. Walking past one of these doors, you might notice how smoothly it rests, held in place by quiet mechanisms designed to respond only if called upon. There is no tension in the metal, no strain in the frame. Everything is at ease. Beyond the doorway, corridors extend in calm lines. Floors are smooth, worn only by measured footsteps. The air is cool and steady, untouched by the changes above ground. Sound travels briefly, then settles back into silence. These doors were maintained by people who understood patience. Their routines involved inspection, not activation. They checked hinges, cleaned seals, ensured that everything remained ready. Readiness here meant restraint. For years, these doors stood exactly as intended, prepared but unused. They watched time pass quietly. Shifts changed, seasons turned, the world above moved through decades of ordinary life. And still, the doors remained open. There is something deeply reassuring about strength that never needs to be tested. These doors were capable of sealing away the outside world, yet they never had to. Their purpose was fulfilled simply by being there. Over time, the need for such readiness faded. Systems were updated, roles changed, facilities were repurposed or left to rest, and the doors, still perfectly functional, continued to wait. Dust settled softly along their edges. Paint aged gently, never chipped by urgency. The steel held its shape without effort. It did not demand attention. It did not ask to be used. Standing near one now, you might feel a sense of quiet confidence. The door does not loom, it does not threaten, it simply exists, a reminder that preparation and peace can coexist. Beyond these doors, rooms remain orderly. Control panels rest dark and silent. Chairs sit neatly aligned. Clocks have stopped, their hands frozen in moments that no longer matter. Time feels less pressing here. The open doorway invites reflection rather than action. It allows you to imagine a world where safety is built not on reaction, but on thoughtful design and careful waiting. As you rest now, picture yourself seated near one of these doors. The space is calm, the light is soft, the door remains open, allowing a gentle flow of air to pass through. There is no reason to close it, no need to shut anything out. The world is quiet, the night is safe. Your breathing slows, steady and natural. With each breath, tension eases, like a door releasing its weight back into balance. Thoughts drift without effort. These steel doors were never closed, and that is their story. They stood ready so that others could sleep peacefully. They carried strength quietly without demand. Let that quiet strength surround you now. Let the openness remain. Nothing needs sealing away. Nothing needs protecting against this moment. The night continues softly, the door stays open, and you are free to rest, held gently by a calm that was built to last. As the evening settles fully into night, imagine a place where time moves slowly and deliberately, the kind of space where clocks tick softly and the hours stretch without pressure. In these quiet hours when most of the world is asleep, the watchkeepers began their long nights. They arrived calmly, often just as daylight faded, Coats were hung neatly, logs were open to fresh pages, lights were adjusted to a soft, steady glow, bright enough to see, gentle enough to soothe. Nothing here was rushed. Everything followed a rhythm that had been practiced many times before. The watchkeeper's role was not dramatic. There were no sudden alarms or urgent calls. Their duty was presence, to be there, to observe systems that rarely changed, to maintain order through consistency. In that stillness, their work found its meaning. Corridors echoed lightly with their footsteps as they moved from room to room. Each step was unhurried, each pause intentional. They checked gauges, noted readings, adjusted nothing unless necessary. Machines hummed quietly, content in their steady operation. Outside, the night unfolded naturally. Stars moved slowly across the sky. Wind passed over the land. In towns and cities nearby, lights dimmed as homes settled into sleep. Inside the facilities, the watchkeepers remained awake, holding the quiet space between evening and morning. There was comfort in the routine. Coffee brewed gently in break rooms, chairs were chosen for long sitting, radios played softly at low volume, if at all. Silence was not something to fill, it was something to respect. Each watchkeeper had their own way of marking time. Some preferred to write detailed notes, their handwriting steady and careful. Others walked slow, familiar routes through the building, knowing every turn and doorway by memory. Together, these small actions gave shape to the long hours. The night shifts were often solitary, but never lonely. The buildings themselves felt like companions. Walls held warmth, floors felt solid underfoot. The steady hum of ventilation systems offered reassurance that everything was functioning as intended. There was something grounding about being awake while the world slept. The watchkeepers understood this feeling well. In the quiet, thoughts slowed, the mind settled. The night became a place of reflection rather than anticipation. Occasionally, a glance at a clock would reveal how gently time was passing. Midnight would arrive without announcement. Early morning hours followed, soft and unassuming. The work continued, unchanged and steady. These watchkeepers were caretakers of calm. Their presence allowed others to rest without worry. By staying awake, they protected sleep elsewhere. It was a quiet exchange, unspoken but deeply felt. As years passed, the nature of the watch changed. Systems became simpler, the need for constant vigilance eased. Eventually, many of these long nights came to an end. Facilities closed gently, without fanfare. Logs were completed one last time, lights were dimmed. But the memory of those nights remains in the walls, in the worn paths along the floor, in the chairs positioned just so, facing control panels that no longer glow. The buildings remember the steady presence of those who watched over them. Imagine sitting now in one of those chairs. The room is quiet, the lights are soft. Nothing demands your attention. There is no need to monitor, no need to respond. Your breathing slows, mirroring the rhythm of those long nights. Each inhale is calm, each exhale releases the day. You are safe in the stillness. The watchkeeper's nights were long but never heavy. They were filled with patience, routine, and quiet purpose. That same calm can carry you now, guiding you gently toward rest. Outside, the sky lightens just slightly, signaling the approach of morning. Inside, the final minutes of the watch pass peacefully. There is satisfaction in knowing that nothing happened and that nothing needed to. As you drift toward sleep, let yourself be held by that sense of gentle oversight. The night is watched, the world is steady, and you are free to rest, just as the watchkeepers once ensured, night after quiet night. As the night settles deeper and the mind grows quieter, Imagine a room filled with machines designed not for motion, but for patience. They sit exactly where they were placed decades ago, composed and silent, their purpose fulfilled simply by being ready. These were the machines that waited without complaint. They were built with care and precision. Switches clicked smoothly, dials turned with gentle resistance. Panels were labeled clearly, each function explained in calm, practical language. Nothing about them was rushed or dramatic. They were meant to endure, not to impress. In their active years, these machines were checked daily. Gauges were read carefully. Oil levels were noted. Wires were inspected for wear. The watchkeepers knew each sound and vibration by heart. Any change, however small, would have been noticed, but change was rare. These machines preferred stillness. Generators rested quietly, capable of providing power at a moment's notice. Ventilation systems moved air gently through corridors and rooms, maintaining balance without effort. Communication devices sat patiently, ready to transmit or receive, yet content to remain silent. Waiting was their natural state. They did not grow restless. They did not age with frustration. Their design allowed them to hold tension evenly, distributing pressure in a way that avoided strain. They were strong, but never forced. In the quiet hours of the night, the soft hum of a machine in standby was almost comforting. It was a reminder that readiness did not require action, that presence alone could be enough. Time passed gently around them. Shifts changed, seasons turned. New technologies emerged elsewhere, faster and louder. Yet these machines remained unchanged, steady in their purpose. Eventually, many were powered down for the last time. Switches were turned slowly, respectfully. Lights dimmed. The hum faded into silence. And still the machines waited, unchanged in posture, undisturbed by inactivity. Dust settled softly across their surfaces. Control panels gathered a thin layer of time. But beneath that stillness, everything remained intact. The gears were aligned, the circuits were whole. Nothing was broken, nothing was worn by overuse. These machines never asked why they were waiting. They never questioned their relevance. They existed in a state of calm readiness, content to fulfill a role that might never be called upon. Standing near them now, you might feel a sense of peace. There is no urgency here, no flashing lights, no alarms, just quiet capability. The rooms that hold these machines feel balanced. The air is cool and stable. Sound is absorbed by concrete walls and settles quickly. Even your thoughts seem to slow in such a place, as if guided by the same calm design. Imagine running your hand along a control panel. The surface is smooth, solid, familiar. Each button has a purpose, yet none demand attention. Everything is exactly where it should be. These machines waited without complaint because they were designed to. They remind us that not everything must be in motion to be useful, that stillness can be powerful. As you rest now, let yourself adopt that same quiet patience. There is nothing you need to fix, nothing you need to prepare for. You are already ready. Your breathing becomes steady, matching the gentle rhythm of machines at rest. Each breath arrives softly and leaves without effort. The world outside continues quietly. Inside, the machines remain content in their silence, and you, like them, are free to let go of motion, drifting into rest without urgency, held by the calm strength of waiting. As the night settles deeper and the mind grows quieter, Imagine a room filled with machines designed not for motion, but for patience. They sit exactly where they were placed decades ago, composed and silent, their purpose fulfilled simply by being ready. These were the machines that waited without complaint. They were built with care and precision. Switches clicked smoothly, dials turned with gentle resistance, panels were labeled clearly, each function explained in calm, practical language. Nothing about them was rushed or dramatic. They were meant to endure, not to impress. In their active years, these machines were checked daily. Gauges were read carefully, oil levels were noted, wires were inspected for wear. The watchkeepers knew each sound and vibration by heart. Any change, however small, would have been noticed. But change was rare. These machines preferred stillness. Generators rested quietly, capable of providing power at a moment's notice. Ventilation systems moved air gently through corridors and rooms, maintaining balance without effort. Communication devices sat patiently, ready to transmit or receive, yet content to remain silent. Waiting was their natural state. They did not grow restless. They did not age with frustration. Their design allowed them to hold tension evenly, distributing pressure in a way that avoided strain. They were strong, but never forced. In the quiet hours of the night, the soft hum of a machine in standby was almost comforting. It was a reminder that readiness did not require action, that presence alone could be enough. Time passed gently around them. Shifts changed, seasons turned. New technologies emerged elsewhere, faster and louder, yet these machines remained unchanged, steady in their purpose. Eventually, many were powered down for the last time. Switches were turned slowly, respectfully. Lights dimmed. The hum faded into silence. And still the machines waited, unchanged in posture, undisturbed by inactivity. Dust settled softly across their surfaces. Control panels gathered a thin layer of time. But beneath that stillness, everything remained intact. The gears were aligned, the circuits were whole. Nothing was broken, nothing was worn by overuse. These machines never asked why they were waiting. They never questioned their relevance. They existed in a state of calm readiness, content to fulfill a role that might never be called upon. Standing near them now, you might feel a sense of peace. There is no urgency here, no flashing lights, no alarms, just quiet capability. The rooms that hold these machines feel balanced. The air is cool and stable. Sound is absorbed by concrete walls and settles quickly. Even your thoughts seem to slow in such a place, as if guided by the same calm design. Imagine running your hand along a control panel. The surface is smooth, solid, familiar. Each button has a purpose, yet none demand attention. Everything is exactly where it should be. These machines waited without complaint because they were designed to. They remind us that not everything must be in motion to be useful, that stillness can be powerful. As you rest now, let yourself adopt that same quiet patience. There is nothing you need to fix, nothing you need to prepare for. You are already ready. Your breathing becomes steady, matching the gentle rhythm of machines at rest. Each breath arrives softly and leaves without effort. The world outside continues quietly. Inside, the machines remain content in their silence, and you, like them, are free to let go of motion, drifting into rest without urgency, held by the calm strength of waiting. As the night becomes still and your thoughts begin to slow, imagine a sound that fades rather than begins. Not a sudden noise, but the gentle memory of one that once existed and then quietly disappeared. This is the sound of silence after the sirens. There was a time when sirens were part of the background of preparation. They stood tall on poles and rooftops, carefully placed where their voices could travel far. Their presence was noticeable, yet they rarely spoke. Most of the time they waited, silent and still, like sentinels watching over wide neighborhoods and open fields. People grew used to seeing them. They blended into the scenery, becoming as familiar as streetlights or water towers. Children pointed them out from car windows. Adults passed beneath them without a second thought. The sirens were there, but they did not intrude. When tests occurred, they were announced in advance. The sound rose slowly, steady, and controlled, never meant to startle. It filled the air briefly, then faded away, leaving behind a quiet that felt deeper than before. The silence afterward was always the most memorable part. That silence carried reassurance. It meant the system worked. It meant nothing more was required. Life resumed its gentle flow almost immediately. Cars continued down roads, conversations picked back up, evenings carried on as planned. Over time, the need for such systems eased. Technology changed, priorities shifted, and one by one, the sirens were deactivated. There was no dramatic moment when they all fell silent at once. The change happened gradually, almost unnoticed. One day, a siren stood quietly through a test it never performed. Another remained silent through a season it once marked. Eventually, they became part of the landscape without function, structures that held only memory. The silence that followed was not empty, it was full of continuity. Neighborhoods felt the same, skies looked unchanged. The quiet was simply quieter. Some sirens were removed carefully, lowered from their places and stored away. Others remained, standing as landmarks of a different era. Birds perched on them, wind passed through their frames, rain washed over surfaces that no longer needed to carry sound. Standing beneath one today, you might notice how peaceful it feels. There is no anticipation, no waiting for a signal, just open air and calm surroundings. The silence after the sirens teaches us something gentle, that not every quiet follows noise. Sometimes quiet arrives because it is no longer needed to be broken. As you rest now, imagine that silence surrounding you, the kind that feels safe, familiar, and complete. There is no sound you are waiting to hear, no alert that needs your attention. Your breathing becomes the only rhythm, steady and soothing. Each breath comes and goes like the fading echo of a sound that no longer matters. The world outside your space continues peacefully. Lights glow softly. Night deepens without interruption. The silence holds everything gently. The sirens have finished their work. Their voices are no longer required. What remains is calm. Let that calm settle around you. Let the silence feel reassuring rather than empty. The night is complete as it is, and you are free to rest within it, carried softly by the sound of nothing at all. As the night grows quieter and your thoughts begin to drift, imagine a place once carefully designed by human hands, now gently embraced by nature. Not reclaimed in haste, not overtaken by force, but welcomed back slowly, season by season. This is nature's return to the forgotten places. Long ago, these places were measured, planned, and maintained with precision. Concrete was poured smoothly, metal was secured firmly, paths were cleared and kept tidy. Everything had a purpose, even if it was rarely used. Then, one day, the purpose faded quietly, and people stopped coming. Nature noticed the absence almost immediately, though it responded patiently. The first signs were subtle: a thin line of grass pushing through a small crack, moss appearing where water lingered, dust collecting undisturbed, softening sharp edges. Without footsteps to interrupt it, time began to move differently. Rain fell and settled where it pleased. Leaves gathered in corners and along doorways. Wind passed freely through open spaces, carrying seeds that found new homes in unexpected places. Vines climbed slowly, exploring walls as though curious. Trees nearby extended roots deeper, sensing space and stability. Birds nested along ledges once designed for utility, filling quiet air with gentle movement rather than sound. These places did not resist. Concrete warmed in the sun and cooled at night, adjusting easily. Metal aged with dignity, forming soft textures that told the story of years passing without urgency. Nothing broke. Everything changed just enough. Inside buildings, light shifted as windows clouded slightly with time. Sunbeams moved across floors that had not felt attention in years. Dust danced quietly in the air, settling again without disturbance. Rooms once meant for work or monitoring became peaceful chambers. The hum of machines was replaced by the sound of wind brushing gently through openings. The silence felt natural, complete. Outside, paths softened, edges blurred. The lines between built and natural faded, creating a calm harmony. Nature did not erase these places, it adapted to them, weaving them into the landscape. What once felt abandoned now feels restful. There is no sense of loss, only transformation. These forgotten places have found a new role as quiet sanctuaries where time moves slowly and gently. Standing in such a place today, you might notice how alive it feels, despite its stillness. Insects move through grasses, small animals pass through open spaces without fear. Life continues softly, without demand. There is a lesson here, subtle and comforting. Nothing is wasted, nothing truly disappears. It simply becomes something else. As you rest now, imagine walking slowly through one of these spaces. Your steps are light. The ground is soft beneath you. The air carries the scent of earth and leaves. Your thoughts begin to settle, much like nature settling into these forgotten places. There is no hurry, no expectation, just quiet continuity. Nature's return is gentle and patient, reminding us that stillness is not emptiness, it is a different kind of fullness. Let that fullness surround you now. Let your mind soften. Let the day release its hold. The forgotten places are no longer forgotten. They rest quietly, just as you can now, held by time, embraced by calm, and ready for sleep. As the night settles into a gentle stillness, imagine stepping into a room where time seems to pause the moment you enter. The air is cool and even, the space is quiet yet not dark. Overhead, fluorescent lights glow softly, casting a steady, reassuring brightness that never flickers. In places like this, time was preserved in fluorescent light. These rooms were designed for consistency. Unlike sunlight, which shifts and changes throughout the day, fluorescent light remains the same hour after hour. It does not rush, it does not fade. It simply exists, offering clarity without drama. During their years of use, these lights were rarely turned off. They illuminated corridors, control rooms, and workspaces around the clock. Their glow became part of the environment, steady, familiar, comforting to those who spent long hours beneath them. Under this light, everything looked exactly as it should, Colors stayed true, shadows were soft and predictable. There were no surprises here. The sameness was intentional, creating a sense of stability that allowed people to focus, to remain calm. Clocks ticked quietly on the walls, but they seemed less important under this unchanging glow. Whether it was morning or night made little difference. Time felt even, measured not by the sun, but by routine. Paperwork lay neatly on desks, clipboards hung in their places, chairs were positioned just so, facing panels and tables that had not moved in years. The light watched over it all, preserving each detail. When activity slowed and eventually stopped, the lights often stayed on a little longer. Sometimes they were left glowing for days, weeks, even months, as though unsure whether they were still needed. Eventually, some were turned off, others remained on, illuminating empty rooms. In those spaces, the effect was striking. Dust particles drifted slowly through the light, visible and graceful. Nothing disturbed them. They settled gently, adding another layer of time to surfaces that already held years of quiet. The fluorescent glow preserved more than objects. It preserved moments. The last note written, the final log entry, the chair pushed slightly back from the desk. Everything remained exactly as it was, untouched by urgency. Walking through such a space today feels like stepping into a held moment. The light reveals details without judgment. It does not ask questions. It simply shows what remains. There is comfort in that kind of stillness. Nothing has to change. Nothing demands attention. The light holds the room exactly as it is. As you rest now, imagine being in a place like this. The light is gentle, even, and calm. It does not strain your eyes. It does not wake you. It simply exists in quiet support. Your breathing slows, the day fades softly, time stretches, smooth and unbroken, like the steady glow overhead. These places remind us that not all preservation is intentional. Sometimes time is held simply because nothing disturbed it. Let that feeling carry you now. Let your thoughts remain suspended gently without urgency. The light is steady, the night is calm, and sleep approaches naturally, preserved in the same soft, unchanging glow. As the night deepens and everything around you grows quiet, imagine walking slowly through a place where no voices remain, yet stories are everywhere. They are not spoken aloud. They are etched gently into walls and floors, waiting to be noticed by anyone willing to move slowly enough. These stories were never written with ink or carved deliberately. They formed over time, shaped by routine, repetition, and quiet presence. A worn spot on the floor where footsteps passed daily. A handprint smoothed into paint near a doorway. Small marks left behind without intention. Walls hold these traces patiently. They remember where chairs leaned, where charts once hung, where hands rested during long hours of stillness. Floors remember patterns, paths taken so often they became natural, almost effortless. In these spaces, movement was calm and purposeful. People walked the same routes day after day, not in haste but in habit. Over time, those habits left subtle impressions, nothing dramatic, nothing rushed, just evidence of steady life. You might notice how corners are softened by years of passing, how door frames bear the faint marks of countless openings and closings. Each sign is small, yet together they tell a story of patience. These marks are comforting, not haunting. They speak of routine, of presence without urgency. They tell us that people were here, doing ordinary things carefully and consistently. In rooms where silence now reigns, you can almost sense the rhythm that once existed, the gentle scrape of a chair moving slightly, the quiet tap of a pen against a desk, the soft echo of footsteps fading down a corridor. Time adds another layer to these stories. Dust settles into grooves worn by years of movement. Light catches uneven surfaces, revealing patterns that only appear when the room is still. Nature adds its own marks as well. A thin crack where roots press gently, a stain where water once lingered. These additions blend seamlessly with the human traces, creating a shared record of passing time. Together, walls and floors become quiet storytellers. They do not rush to be understood. They reveal themselves slowly to those who pause and observe. Standing in such a space feels grounding. There is no need to imagine dramatic events. The beauty lies in the ordinary, the countless small moments that shaped the environment. As you rest now, imagine walking barefoot across one of these floors. The surface is cool and solid beneath you. Each step connects you to the stillness of the space. Your hand brushes lightly against a wall. It feels smooth, worn by time rather than damaged. The texture is comforting, familiar. These stories etched into walls and floors remind us that presence matters even when it leaves no grand mark, that calm routines create lasting impressions. Let your thoughts slow, like footsteps echoing gently and then fading. Let the day's marks settle behind you. The room remains, the stories stay quietly in place, and you are free to rest, surrounded by the calm memory of steady, peaceful time. As the night settles comfortably around you, imagine a place that once held great importance, now resting gently within the landscape. It no longer hums with activity or anticipation. Instead, it stands quietly, content to be noticed only by those who pass slowly. These are places that moved from strategic sites to quiet landmarks. Long ago, these locations were chosen with care. Geography mattered. Elevation, distance, and access were studied closely. Each site fit into a larger plan, though it often appeared unremarkable from the outside. Their importance was known to only a few. Buildings rose with purpose. Materials were chosen for strength and longevity. Roads led in and out efficiently. Everything was designed to function smoothly without drawing attention. Over time, the urgency surrounding these places softened. Systems were updated elsewhere. Needs changed. The sites themselves did not resist this transition. They simply adapted, shifting from roles of readiness to roles of quiet presence. One by one, activity slowed. Equipment was removed or left in place. Doors were closed gently, not locked away, but settled into stillness. The places remained exactly where they were, steady and unchanged. As years passed, communities around them grew familiar with their presence. What was once guarded became accepted. What was once secret became simply part of the scenery. These sites transformed naturally into landmarks, not because of plaques or signs, but because of familiarity. People used them as reference points. Just past the old building, near the quiet hill, they became woven into everyday language. Nature embraced them easily. Grass grew evenly along pathways. Trees provided shade where none existed before. Birds and insects moved freely through open spaces. Visiting one today feels calm and grounding. There is no sense of urgency, no feeling of exclusion. The space is open, welcoming in its stillness. These landmarks tell a story without words. They speak of planning, patience, and restraint, of a time when readiness mattered, and of the quiet success that followed. As you rest now, imagine standing near one of these sites at dusk. The light softens, shadows stretch gently. The building rests easily within its surroundings. There is no need to know its full history to feel its calm. The place has settled into a role of quiet reassurance. Let that reassurance surround you. Let the day's noise fade away. The landmark remains steady, and you are free to rest, guided by the calm of something that no longer needs to be anything more than what it is. As the night grows calm and your breathing begins to slow, imagine standing among structures built with great care and deliberate intention. They are strong, enduring, and quiet. They do not demand attention. They do not announce their presence. Yet they have something gentle to teach. These structures teach us about restraint. They were designed in an era when planning mattered deeply. Every decision was weighed. Every material was chosen with thoughtfulness. Nothing was added without purpose. Nothing was rushed. Strength here was not loud, it was measured. These buildings remind us that restraint is not the absence of action, but the wisdom to wait. They were prepared for moments that never came, and in that waiting, they fulfilled their purpose. Their stillness became their success. Inside these spaces, everything reflects balance. Rooms are not oversized, corridors are not narrow. Light is even, sound is softened. There is harmony in the design, a quiet agreement between form and function. People who worked in these places learned restraint through routine. They monitored systems without interference. They followed procedures calmly. They understood that not every tool needs to be used to be valuable. Over time, the structures remained unchanged while the world around them evolved. They did not chase trends. They did not react to noise. They stayed steady, anchored in their original intent. This steadiness is deeply comforting. It reminds us that we do not always need to respond to every thought, every impulse, every worry. Sometimes holding still is enough. As you rest now, imagine yourself in one of these spaces. The air is calm, the light is soft. Nothing demands your attention. Your thoughts begin to slow, mirroring the restraint built into the walls around you. There is no urgency, no expectation. These structures teach us that peace can be built deliberately, that calm can be designed, that patience can be strong. Let those lessons settle into you gently. Let the night hold you in stillness. You do not need to do anything more. Restraint does not limit you, it frees you. And in that freedom, sleep comes naturally, quietly, and without effort. As the night reaches its deepest calm, imagine the world gently settling into stillness. Lights dim across distant neighborhoods, roads empty. Even the wind seems to move more slowly, as if it too is ready to rest. This is the moment when the world is at rest and the sentinels are at peace. For so long, these silent guardians stood quietly in the background, watching, waiting, prepared without urgency. They were built to endure time, not to interrupt it. Now, with their purpose fulfilled simply by having existed, they rest easily within the landscape. Concrete structures sit comfortably beneath the earth or against open skies. Doors remain open. Corridors lie undisturbed. Nothing hums. Nothing blinks. Everything feels complete exactly as it is. Above them, the world breathes slowly. Homes glow softly from within, then fade to darkness one by one. Trees sway gently, leaves brushing against each other in quiet conversation. The night sky stretches wide and calm, holding the steady rhythm of stars. These sentinels no longer watch because there is nothing left to watch for. The long waiting has ended, not in action, but in peace. Their stillness now mirrors the calm they once protected. Time feels different here. There is no rush to move forward, no pressure to look back. The past rests gently behind, and the present unfolds without demand. Imagine standing at the entrance to one of these places. The air is cool and steady. The ground beneath you feels solid and reassuring. There is no sense of closure, only continuity. Inside, the space is quiet but not empty. It holds memory, patience, and care. It holds the calm presence of countless nights that passed without interruption. The Sentinels were never meant to be remembered loudly. Their success was measured in ordinary days, in uninterrupted sleep, in peaceful nights like this one. As you rest now, let yourself share in that quiet success. You do not need to remain alert. You do not need to be prepared. The watching is over. Your breathing becomes slow and even. Each breath carries you deeper into comfort. Muscles relax, thoughts soften. The world outside continues gently, without urgency. Nothing asks for your attention. Nothing requires your response. The sentinels have found their rest, and so can you. The night is kind. The quiet is complete. Let yourself drift now, carried by the calm of a world at peace, where everything that needed to stand ready has done so, and everything that needs to rest finally can. Sleep comes softly, naturally, and without effort.